On this episode of Exactly How, we're going to show you exactly how to deter crime from happening on your properties, how to sleep good at night, and how to limit liability on this episode of Exactly How.
You're listening to the Exactly How podcast, where you'll hear the underground, closely guarded wealth building secrets of successful people around the globe. Discover exactly how to improve your mental, physical, and financial health. Feel better, make more money, live, give, and prosper in today's exciting, fast-paced world filled with opportunity for those who know exactly how.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Connected Investors podcast and YouTube show, Exactly How. During this episode, you're going to discover how to protect the real estate that you have. Connected Investors shows you how to build big portfolios, but how do you protect it? This is not an asset protection webinar. This goes a little beyond that, and we have some really cool lessons for everyone on the line here. For those of you who are new, my name is Ross Hamilton, today's host and CEO of ConnectedInvestors.com, the world's largest social network of real estate investors. And today we have the privilege to learn from a gentleman who coaches and grows entrepreneurs of all types. Prior to his career in real estate, he was a CEO, a police officer, and a firefighter. So he's been protecting things his whole life. All that changed when he was a police officer and realized that there was a need for innovation and tech-enabled private security. So I would describe our guest as a very curious security investor. His name is Steve Mutting, and today he's going to explain exactly how to protect your real estate assets. Thank you so very much for taking the time to speak with us, Steve.
Yeah, thank you for the warm introduction. Glad to be on the show.
Yeah, and before we dive into all of these great tips and tricks we were talking about before we hit the record button, you contribute a lot of your success to finding your purpose. Why do you think this has played such a big role in your success as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, great question. I think when you have a sense of purpose and motivation, everything else in your life tends to flow. And a lot of real estate investors are looking for that work-life balance and generating passive income. And so when you figure out what it is exactly that you're waking up every morning and doing, the stars align to some extent, plus a lot of hard work. And by finding your purpose and your passion, when things get tough, you push through and you create more resilience. And I think that's a key factor of a lot of successful people that I meet.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it's funny. I just was listening to this other podcast about starting your morning off correctly. And they said that the first 8 minutes of your day can really shape your entire mood and everything that's going on in your day. And when you wake up and you think about your purpose, you understand your purpose, it's just, it does really help you keep the momentum going, right? Keep the momentum, get up, grind, go. So Steve, thanks for sharing that information with us. What makes the Exactly How Financial Freedom podcast unique is every show comes with a detailed action plan. So we're going to go ahead and pull the steps out of Steve's head so you don't have to worry about writing things down while you're driving. And it will all be on exactlyhow.com. Get the show notes, the key takeaways. And Steve even has a fantastic free giveaway he's going to give everyone on the line here. You can get that all at exactlyhow.com. Plus, you can throw your name in the hat to win our $3,000 Pre-MLS software, which pinpoints the best deals for real estate investors in any market. Vacants, probates, pre-foreclosure, zombie properties, expired listings, you name it, we have it inside the Pre-MLS, and someone is going to win it today. So if you're watching this show live or during the premiere, visit exactlyhow.com, throw your name into the hat. So Steve, let's go ahead and talk about really security guard services as it relates to real estate.
Yeah. So particularly in real estate investing, there's a lot of premise liability, regardless of whether you're investing in commercial real estate, office buildings, multifamily housing, residential. As a landlord, a lot of times there's a duty to protect. And so sometimes that slips a lot of real estate investors' mind when you're trying to increase your net OI, trying to buy low, sell high. You're not necessarily focused or concerned about the premise liability concerns and having those assets structured properly. So we've seen in the past everything from a dog bite to homicide. Those tend to carry significant liability claims, and if you, the landlord or the property manager, didn't have the appropriate measures of security, that can be a huge disruption to your business and a significant financial loss that could have long-term devastating effects. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
it's funny you mentioned dog bite because a guest that we had on just a few shows ago, she was talking about her dog. Little dog just nipped someone and she got sued for $1.2 million.
Yeah, I mean,
Hardly, didn't even really break skin, just a little bruise. They were just walking down the street. So it's very real.
it is. It's, how you have those assets structured and tied is probably just as important as, trying to make a good deal great. Now, from a security, negligence perspective, everything as little as putting 6-inch screws in your front door can cause a potential claim. So if somebody comes in and tries to kick in your front door, and you, the landlord, didn't have the proper eye hole or didn't have the proper shrubs trimmed, that can be a huge liability concern.
Wow. Yeah. Well, let's kind of go into these key takeaways or these steps to make sure that, God forbid, anything ever happens at one of your properties. At least you weren't negligent in some of these other areas here. So, Steve, we talked about the kind of the main takeaways, the broken window theory, which you're going to talk about. Let's just jump right into the first step, the broken theory, the broken window theory, because I'm really curious. What does that mean?
Right. Good question. And, we could tie probably all three of those tips into one overreaching, call it strategy, that a lot of commercial or real estate investors in general should be thinking through. And that's called CPTED. That's crime prevention through environmental design. So if you look at the real estate asset like an avocado, right? It's hard on the outside, and then it gets softer and softer and softer until you get to the core. And the skin is really hard on the outside because you want to protect the core, right? So as you look at your house, you want to think about it as in layers. So if you think about the first layer, right, you have your street, right? And if you look at your street, and this is for residential properties, is there a bunch of stuff in the street, right? Is there your garbage cans hanging out? Do you have an old basketball net sitting there? Are there broken down old cars? Do you have a lot of cars in the driveway? So those different elements of your environment create an opportunity for people to hide, right? And you also don't notice when things are misplaced. So if you have a nice clean outside, you'll notice if there's an extra car hanging out at your neighbor's house, on the street, casing your property, right? Watching when you leave, when you go to work, when you come back, etc. But if you've got a bunch of distractions in a messy, front yard, you're not going to know if somebody's out there or something is out there that shouldn't be. So that's really step one. Step two would be, as you get closer to the next layer of the house, making sure that you have a certain protection against penetration into the house. So whether that's fencing to get into a closer proximity of the house, whether that's a door, whether that's gates, windows, whatever, you got to make sure that those are properly secured, right? So if you've got a window that the latch is broken, the sliding glass door isn't secured properly, that's a pretty easy entry, right? And a lot of times you don't even need to break a window to get in, you just open up the door. And at that point, law enforcement or you may not even know if somebody's inside because there isn't a broken window, right? Now, following one more layer deeper, you have alarm systems, right? You've got everything from the DIYs, which are the do-it-yourselfs, like the Rings and all the other stuff they sell at Costco and the big box retailers. Then you have the more professional systems that have a signal that would actually go to a central station monitoring company, and they would dispatch security or law enforcement when that's triggered. So those are all really great and important tools to have. And last but not least is yourself. And that's really where the core comes in. So what you're protecting in your house is you and your family or you and your tenants, right? Because if there's harm to any one of those, that's the real impact, A, to your business or B, to your family. And I think a lot of people forget that. They're worried about, the MacBook, or they're worried about, the watch. But in reality, from a liability perspective, all that stuff can be replaced and typically is insured upon. But when there's human life that's at stake, whether it's death or dismemberment, unfortunately, those can have a real big impact on your real estate portfolio. So as you look at the whole house in general, think about it in different layers. Peeling the onion or opening the avocado. Those are all really helpful.
Yeah, no, that's some really good insight thing. I mean, none of this, I've never thought of any of this before. And I'm just running through my head now with all my rental properties. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if that lock in that window is fixed. So as a landlord, if someone breaks into that house, they go through that window, the tenant couldn't lock it. Now it's like, hey, what's going on here, Mr. Landlord? Now we have some other podcasts about how to structure your assets to where you have trusts and LLCs, and you're able to separate liability so they can't come at you personally, but it's still going to put a huge dent in your day. At the very least, as long as if no one was hurt, it still just puts a big financial dent in your day. Not to mention what could happen if someone did get hurt. So these are really important things to think about. Can you tell me a little bit about the free gift that you're giving everyone who is listening here today?
Yeah, so I've recently published a book called Integrated Gardening, and it takes really two different elements. It takes people and technology and combine those together to take a proactive approach to commercial real estate. And works through kind of the history of security and where it's at today, which is a huge gap. So the way that investors have been protecting their assets, over the last 100 years or so has changed significantly. And I think we've got to change with the times as well to protect our most important assets.
Great. So that's a free book you can get at exactlyhow.com. And Steve, my mind was spinning so much just going through all my rental properties in my head. I forgot to announce the winner of today's software. So today, this gentleman went to exactlyhow.com, maybe yesterday or the day before, threw his name into the hat, and he's now winning a free $3,000 software that will basically just pinpoint the best deals in his market. And today's winner is David Reese. David, congratulations. Thank you for listening to our podcast, for making so many comments, for liking, for sharing, for subscribing. We really appreciate everyone's support. So congratulations. Steve, we talked a little bit about the residential aspects. We have a lot of commercial investors on the line as well. Is there anything specifically you want to bring up for them that you might not have touched on?
Yeah, as asset prices and allocation continue to increase, so does the liability. And so commercial real estate, whether it's commercial office building, some multifamily housing, student housing, whatever the case is, you have even more of a liability at that point to provide a safe environment for your residents or tenants. There is a gray area there. Obviously, we as security professionals, in addition to investors, never promise a secure environment or that we can secure anybody's safety. But when somebody steps foot on your property, there is a certain duty and scope of responsibility that you, the property owner, have to ensure or to assist with somebody's safety. And so I think that as communities get larger and more people are there, the risk and liability significantly increase, particularly when you look at urbanization. That's a real thing when it comes to crime statistics and data. So as people continue to get closer and closer and on top of each other, more issues are prone to happen. And so, protecting yourself will not only help you from a liability perspective, but also reduce your insurance premiums from your general liability and your commercial real estate policies.
Yeah, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
Right.
So well, I really appreciate that. And is there any, with a lot of these short-term rental craze that's happening, we have a great podcast and YouTube episode about making hundreds of thousands of dollars using Airbnb without even owning the properties, right? And there are some interesting techniques there to where you're leasing the property from one person and then you're short-term leasing it to another person. And we walk you through all of that in during the podcast. But are there any, how does the Airbnb, short-term rentals kind of play a role there? Is there any liability, or is the person that's doing a sandwich lease option kind of free from that?
Right. Great question. By the way, I'd love to listen to that podcast. There's still a lot of liability there. I would say in that one, the devil is in the details. So it depends on the contract. Everybody's going to point the finger at everybody if there is an incident like that, which is actually highly or more probable in a VBRO or an Airbnb instance.
Yeah.
More transient. and you have a lot of assets there and they're not familiar with the area. And so I think that's actually highly probable, but it's going to depend on the contract between all those parties.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I stay at Airbnbs everywhere I go, and sometimes I look at the picture, I'm like, this looks great. And then I pull up late at night and I'm like, this area is really close to the city, but it's, it feels a little sketchy. And then I'm just talking to random strangers who I think are supposed to let me in. So there's a lot of opportunity there when you're doing these short-term rentals and have a high frequency of, guests coming in and out to have some, something happen. Someone forgets to lock a door, it happens.
Yeah.
So,
security is an important part, regardless, of all the different real estate asset classes. And a lot of investors tend to not spend a lot of time on it. I think a lot of those individuals are there for the short game. But if you're, a real estate investor and you're making a career out of this, and this is a long-term hold for you, security is definitely something worth investing in.
Great. Well, Steve, do you have time for the rapid fire section here of the podcast?
Yes.
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind, I'm just going to ask you a few fun, quick questions. All right,
Sure.
Steve, here we go. On a scale of 1 to 10, how strict were your parents?
5.
Get up early or stay up late?
Both.
How many hours of sleep do you get?
5 to 6.
Do you have young kids?
1 10-month-old.
That's the 2 times someone has got less than 6 hours of sleep, they had kids. If you could be any superhero, who would it be?
Probably Superman, the ability to fly.
There you go. Favorite or most recent book that you read other than your free ebook that you're giving everyone?
Principles, Ray Dalio.
Awesome. We'll make sure to have that at exactlyhow.com. Something everyone should do less of.
Worrying.
Something everyone should do more of.
Thinking and meditating.
Will people step foot on Mars in your lifetime?
Yes.
Bitcoin, bang or bust?
Bang.
All right. Good. All right. Hey, thank you so very much for jumping on the line with us, Steve. This was a very interesting topic that people like to conveniently forget about. But at the Exactly How podcast here, we're going to make sure there's no stone unturned. We're going to bring you the best of the best authors like Steve, who have been in and around real estate and have seen everything happen. He was a firefighter, a policeman, so he knows what could happen. And a lot of times it's not if it's going to happen, it's just when it's going to happen. So thanks again for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.
All right. You made it to the end of the show. Congratulations. You are a special type of person because you finished what you started. Only 30% of people make it to the end of a podcast. So you obviously found value. So Steve and I would love for you to like this, share this, tag someone you know, just engage with us in some way. That's the fuel that keeps us going and going and going. Feel free to binge out on all of the previous episodes. You can get all of the gifts. Steve's giving a free ebook, but when you look at all the episodes that we've done and all of the free gifts, there's thousands and thousands of dollars of free value waiting for you at exactlyhow.com. If you didn't win access to the software this week, don't worry. We'll be offering it again soon, shortly. So thanks again for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.
The Connected Investors app connects you with investors, notifies you of available properties, helps locate cash buyers, and secure private funding to close deals. Set up in seconds to become a member of the Connected Investors social network. Now you can scroll through your main feed to find cash buyers, see investment properties not available to the general public, and network with investors by adding your own comments to a thread to keep the conversation going. The Control Center is your connection to add properties to sell, start new discussions, connect with local investors, and even find private funding. The Notifications tab will keep you alerted to new investment properties and offers. You'll also find new friend requests to connect directly with the community to build your network. From the property marketplace, you'll be able to find, favorite, and make offers on investment properties. Download Connected Investors today to find, figure, fund, and flip investment properties on the go.